Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has reshuffled his 45-member cabinet, naming 7 new ministers and sacking 5 while reassigning 10 others to new portfolios. Now, the ministers of Finance, Defense, National Planning and 2 junior energy ministers all retain their positions. The reshuffle includes renaming the Ministry of Niger Delta Development to the Ministry of Regional Development, the winding up of the Ministry of Sports, the merger of the Ministries of Tourism and Arts and Culture. Dr. Boniface Chizea, a public affairs analyst, joins us now to discuss the change of guard at the presidency by President Bola Tinubu. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Very good.
Thank
so,
you.
Some have described the latest cabinet reshuffle as a missed opportunity for change. What's your opinion, sir?
I think that first thing is to say that it's even good we're having a cabinet reshuffle. I think that what that says is at least somebody is alert, somebody is doing some tracking. And the mere fact of having a reshuffle, has its benefits. It puts everyone on their toes. So I think that's important. Well, I think that missed opportunity. There's so many other things around this reshuffle which one can discuss. But we thought, like you said now, missed opportunity from the point of view that we don't have any names you could recognize as such. I mean, Bianca Uno, well, okay, but the consensus out there is that she's like a round peg in a round hole to some extent because she's a lawyer and she's been in that ministry before. Yeah. But then you don't have any names. So we have some crisis on this land. And one of the things you needed to have is to have people who come with pedigree, who come with antecedents, that would make you begin to believe that there will come some initiatives that would impact on the crisis we have on the land. Because there are other things, the number is bloated. This president is on record. He has the largest cabinet in history so far. Well, I hope I'm correct. Others would normally have what the constitution says. 1 minister per state and then 1 minister per region. So you anchored at 42. But then he went to 45, and even with what he has done now, it's increased to 47. So I think there's some issues there. And then there are issues also from the point of view that there is like a concentration on a state, for instance. Ogun State is supposed to have 5 ministers. Well, I've not checked this. This is what you have out there. So 5 ministers from a state, and so I think that those are some challenges. Well, okay, the issue of better edu. For once, at least, it's been settled and laid to rest. So I think those are my initial take on the matter.
But if you look at President Tinubu's disposition to the OROS report, earlier in the year he had said that the report would be implemented, and some of the things that were stated in the report were, for instance, merging ministries, cutting down costs generally. Would you say that this is a reflection of that report that was submitted in 2012 during President Jonathan's administration?
My take on the OROS report is that it's been overtaken by events. I think what we need to do was just take the trust of that report and work with it. Something happened 2012, 2012. So and it's a long way. It's a long way. It's gone past that. If you put that in context and say to yourself, we have a Minister for Livestock. One can't we subsume that under agriculture? And also, if you look at some of the structures that's put out there, it's going to have Minister of Regional and Development. Yeah. And then you have Niger Delta Ministry is not going to take responsibility. Well, we now talked about the funding. All those regional institutions he has created, are we going to fund them? We have a crisis with funding our budget. Yeah. You take education, you take health, and so on. Even what we were supposed to, the amount of money in terms of percentage, we were supposed to allocate those sectors. We are not able to do so. And of course, Niger Delta is a very sensitive area. The agitation in terms of the obvious injustice. You have pollution in the area. That's where we get all our monies, and then they've been neglected. So you bring this in the center, and then you spend the thing. So I say to people, unless and until we embrace the fact that we have to go back to the regions we had before. This regional creation is not exactly what we're looking for. What we are looking for is that we have to go back to what you had post-independence, so when regions were fairly autonomous, so they were fairly independent, they work on their own, and they run on their lane, so they earn their monies and they pay tax to the center. But to get back to that, what you have now, the feeding bottle arrangement, is not going to take us very far. And so those are challenges. I think that I've already heard people crying and saying that, so how are you going to fund those regions? Where are you going to get the money from? So are you going to take it from Niger Delta, who got it at 10% based on agitations and so on and so forth, and then begin to dilute it and begin to share it to these other regions and so on and so forth. So there are some issues.
Definitely. I'm glad you brought the issue of the post-independence era, the centralization regarding all of that. But as you know, we're borrowing the U.S. Kind of federal structure. And you find in that country, the cabinet consists of just 15 departmental heads, or ministers, as it were, with 10 sub-level representatives as well. Now, if the U.S. could operate with that for such a long time now, okay, why are we operating a bloated bureaucracy and at this increased level, or should we say it's some kind of homegrown scenario to meet our needs? And does those needs actually warrant what we have now?
Well, if you take the first thing that happened, what happened the first time out when the first cabinet was put in place, it was like a reward for those who worked for the president. That's essentially what it was. So people that worked for his coming on board and they were rewarded. And up to a large extent, if you look at what happened, 9 of those who were appointed were people who tried to be governors and did not succeed.
Yeah.
And so it's like compensation, so you fail. And then when you do that, we're not talking about really putting round holes and round pegs and round holes and so on and so forth, looking for people who have antecedents. You look at what President Obasanjo did, when in second term, when he brought in Charles Oludo, Konjiwala, and so on and so forth, Additional, and so on. So he brought people, and then he meant business, and he wanted to, to develop the place. Even what you have now, there's still some issues. Even some of the appointees, I have National Sports Commission, the man is put there, had some issues, in terms of the values, he brings to the table. And so I think that those are challenges. So what I'm saying is that if we really want to put a structure and we're trying to get to merge them, certainly it will work. You don't need to have each portion, each segment being manned by the minister. What you have to do, like I said, what Rosario reports, I say that we need to borrow the trust of what he's trying to say to us. You put things where there's harmony. When you try to do that, by arts, culture, and tourism, and so on, where you had separate ministry before, so that's the way to go. And I'm sure that if we try to do that, we'll have gone further than that. But you have a case whereby what the president has done, in fact, is even large. Yes, and now he turns around and starts saying to us, that now he wants to, in 10 ministers, not to have more than 3 vehicles in their convoy, and so on and so forth, most 5 security details and so on. But that he has to lead by example, because the president, when he comes to Lagos, it's a chain of convoy. It's something that, it's like you want to make an impression. So I'm the president, and if I'm moving, so it's an ego trip. So the president does that. So we want to see what will happen when next he comes to Lagos, because you have to walk the talk. This is very important.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head, especially when it comes to cutting the cost of governance and the directive the president recently issued about the convoys of ministers and, departments and agencies. But I'd like to know if you're really expectant or optimistic about this current move by the president to, merge ministry. Of course, we didn't see much of the merging because one of the merging that the OROS report asked for was, for instance, the ICPC, the EFCC, and all of these agencies that have duplication of roles. Are you expectant?
Well, I think that we have to merchant of hopes. We have to be expectant. We expect that if they've done the review and Chizea Balausman, supposed to be the person in charge, and she's monitored and tracks them, and done a review. So we expect that we'll cut them a slack and say that we expect that they've looked at things properly and they have expectations. So So they have targets, and then they will try and meet it. But from where I am, I think that it's not too clear that that's going to happen. We have challenges in the economy. We have issues, particularly the issue of the rate of exchange and what's happening in the petroleum sector. I think those will continue to be areas of concern.
Now, talking about specifics now, Doctor, those 10 reshuffled members or thereabout, are we expecting any major change from their services prior, before, now? We've seen what they've done, and probably the confidence that he posed on them that they will do something more this time around.
For instance, the Minister of Trade and Investment, Doris Anyete, who is now the Minister of Finance.
So are we...
Minister of State.
Yes,
of State for
and
Finance.
there were also some talks about, okay, fine, probably the portfolios they had initially probably wasn't for them, and probably the ones they have now, they might fit in. But will there be any major positive change in this regard?
I did say, I said we call him a slack. We expect that since our attention has been paid, doing some monitoring, we expect that, and he's taking his time. If you look at the thing, the way it went about, the fact that even the reshufflement was announced for a very long period, that's unusual, because in this environment, if somebody knows you're going to remove them, they could pull a very powerful string. I have an experience, personal experience, when Buhari was going to appoint me to replace someone, a minister, and I was headhunted, and the guy got to know about it, and it was stopped.
So there's intense lobbying.
Yes. So it was stopped, and then although they ended up marginalizing the guy, put him on the sidelines, but it was stopped. So I wouldn't want to mention names, but it happened under Buhari. So that he did that, I was saying to myself, how is he going to do it? But he was able to do it. And then when the announcement was made, it said that they went to the meeting. At the meeting, it's been decided. I don't know. Was it discussed at the meeting?
We saw the outcome at the end of the day.
Outcome, yes. So, I mean, the buck stops on the table of the president. He knows those who work with him. It's not a matter for open discussion. So I think he gets the report. He has the responsibility. He has the ultimate responsibility. So he has to put people, at the end of the day, it seems that it's accountable to Nigerian population. Even if we have issues with that in terms of those who are elected and accountability and so on and so forth, based on the way and manner, they got to power.
Oh, well, that's a fine place to leave the conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Boniface Chizea, for your time on Newsday.